Judge Arthur Engoron dealt a severe setback to Trump's effort to suspend the proceedings, scheduled for January 11, 2024, with closing arguments, giving the fraud case against Trump, spearheaded by New York Attorney General Letitia James, a dramatic turn. In a scathing evaluation, Judge Engoron rejected Trump's move to dismiss, voicing his annoyance with the defendant's repeated attempts. In order to throw out the lawsuit. This video will explain everything. To begin receiving our daily breaking news updates, please subscribe and enable alerts. I will now proceed. Much obliged. The judge made it clear that, instead of getting bogged down in technical issues, he would concentrate on revealing the motion's basic shortcomings. Professor Eli Bardoff, Trump's expert witness, had his credibility shattered in no time by Judge Engoron. By challenging the veracity of Bardoff's claims, he placed doubt on his testimony. The judge brought out Bardoff's huge $1 million charge, suggesting that experts could be influenced to match their opinions with the paying party's interests because of such a large payment. Bardoff was a highly respected professor, yet his evidence was not convincing. Reason being, he never once backed down from denying that the financial figures were inaccurate. Next, Engoron turned his attention to an argument Trump had made, which he criticized as an attempt to find an excuse to avoid punishment. Engoron criticized Trump's claim that any misleading statements made after a loan was closed, within the legal time limit for a lawsuit, were immune. According to the judge, this line of reasoning violated both the law of the case doctrine and executive law, section 6312. He maintained that closing arguments were insufficient to shield future lies from investigation. The judge also rejected claims about the Attorney General's authority as baseless. The judge rejected Engoron's argument that inflating the value of assets could unfairly benefit lenders who relied on erroneous information and perceived lesser risks, casting doubt on Trump's assertion that the lenders were unharmed. Engoron refuted Trump's claims about the subjective nature of appraisals and the exclusive punishment for major deviations. He emphasized that, although opinions on valuations can vary, inflating property prices was clearly fraudulent. Also, the judge looked closely at how Trump insisted on using disclaimers to clarify everything. AMAS, the issuer, used these not as disclaimers but as a standard operating procedure to guarantee that the assertions were accurate, casting doubt on Trump's assertion that these disclaimers absolved him of responsibility. Judge Engoron's rejection of Trump's motions to dismiss the case was a major decision, and Trump allegedly voiced his displeasure with the verdict. A significant turning point in the court struggle has been reached with the denial of Trump's efforts to suspend the proceedings, pointing to a pivotal point in New York Attorney General Letitia James's continuing fraud prosecution. As the fraud trial against Trump progressed, Judge Engoron painstakingly dismantled Trump's legal strategies. Significant arguments put forth are meticulously examined in the judge's order. Trump's defense exposes their efforts to dismiss the case, which he views as fatally flawed. The dynamics within the courtroom are still playing out as the trial draws to a close, molding the story of this high-profile legal battle. During a TV interview, the man behind Godwin's law caused Trump to urinate. Someone will always bring up the Hitler connection when people start debating online. Mike Godwin, an early proponent of the internet, coined the idea for this practically universal rule, which is known as Godwin's law. Who came up with the idea for it in 1990? Furthermore, although it is not explicitly stated in the legislation, it is widely recognized that the side invoking Hitler or the Nazis often faces defeat in the case. Over the weekend, the campaign of President Joe Biden cited Godwin's law in claiming that Trump had echoed Hitler's rhetoric when he declared that illegal immigrants were a threat to American sovereignty. But as Godwin acknowledged, that is not evidence that Biden is losing his case. In an interview, Godwin made the comment that Trump is inviting comparisons to Hitler. Trump, in his perspective, is also trying to draw attention to the comparison. In a November interview with the extreme right-wing publication The National Pulse, Trump said nearly the same thing. Simultaneously, Trump echoed Hitler's mocking of Jews by comparing his political opponents to vermin. According to Godwin, it may be a coincidence if you said the vermin comment or the hurting the blood comment. I still don't think it's coincidental, but both of them do a good job of establishing a theme. People frequently find it amusing or awkward when famous people or their staff mention the H word, although comparisons to Hitler and the Nazis happen all the time, particularly in internet conversation. Laughter may ensue. But the Biden team has taken a political gamble by making this strong and potentially damaging statement, hoping that people will not see the accusation as exaggerated. Godwin, who is now an attorney who focuses on defamation and internet law, spoke with Politico magazine about his thoughts on the Biden team's position and the reasons behind the rule's persistence. Is Godwin's law working against the Biden campaign as they try to draw parallels between Trump and Hitler? "You're losing the debate if you bring up the Nazis, which is why I've never mentioned that," he said. Verify your facts before bringing up the Holocaust or comparing someone to Hitler or the Nazis. However, drawing parallels between Trump's phone calls and those of Biden or anyone else does not always constitute an inherent error. Rats, or bringing up the topic of blood poisoning with Hitler. Someone who has studied Hitler and the Nazis extensively in the past, I don't think of myself as one, has always made sure to know enough about the past to determine if a connection was reasonable. In general, Hitler's discourse is characterized by degrading language. As a result, Trump is inviting comparisons to Hitler. Can you honestly say that you think Trump's rhetoric is reminiscent of Nazi philosophy or Hitler's? Is reasonable? In this case, I would take it a step farther. To suggest that Trump is competent would be an understatement, in my opinion. You think he did it on purpose, or you do. However, it's true that there are some genuine parallels. The dehumanizing component throughout Hitler's speeches is more evident if you've read his own writings, which, by the way, I don't advocate for anyone. The recordings of Hitler's speeches that exist are mainly incoherent. In their attempts to transcribe his remarks, our experts are attempting to recreate their sound. Consequently, it's similar to seeing a stand-up comedian deliver the same jokes over and over again, in this case, Hitler. When interacting with Trump, he will oftentimes say or do the same things more than once. No matter what else you say about him, he is good at reading lines. Get the kind of answers he wants. Having claim lines at conventions is important since they provide high-quality media for video production. And if he keeps saying the same thing, someone is more likely to quote him in a news piece right away. This is obviously a scripted move. One could potentially use the comment about the vermin or the comment about the blood. Perhaps one of them could actually occur, but they both make it crystal clear that there is a theme running through it, and I still don't think it's coincidence. It begs the question, why do it on purpose? In my opinion, Trump is trying to appease the small percentage of his base that thinks this is the best method to express his message. He thinks it's a great way to rally support for his re-election campaign, and it's also personally satisfying for him. To begin with, what was it that made you think of the law? In those early days of the World Wide Web, I used to spend my breaks from graduate school surfing the web. Lots of people would be talking, and I would see the rhetoric heating up. The level of animosity among individuals escalated. They would claim that Hitler would make a statement similar to that. Because I was a graduate student at the time, I thought that was quite concerning. With an emphasis on the rules of international law. With an emphasis on legal philosophy. It was my subjective experience. Calling everyone a Nazi or Hitler will cause us to lose sight of the significance of that time in history. Do people ever make reference to Godwin's law? Returning to the notion that you are unaware of your Godwin status. That has happened a lot, I'll admit. Someone I had worked with for 2 years approached me in my workplace, claiming credit for creating Godwin's law. Even though we'd known each other for quite some time, he had no clue that Godwin's law's inventor lived and worked just down the hall. Would it be strange to be a common person who drafted this groundbreaking online standard? To prove that one person could make a big difference in media culture, I had chosen to do just that. In order to make it hilarious, I came up with Godwin's law and phrased it in a formal, pseudo-objective fashion. The online discussion continues. The odds of someone bringing up Hitler or the Nazis are getting close to 1. If I had warned against drawing such an analogy, I would have spared the lives of those who remember the Holocaust. There would have been zero impact from that. People pay attention when you make it seem like what they're doing is as purposeless as a stone rolling down a hill. There has been a quantifiable belief that the rise of Hitler or the Nazis will happen for a long time. Has the general public become used to the comparison after years of clumsy correlations? Is the idea that we're in a situation similar to the boy who cried wolf correct? Here in the United States, our population is tremendously varied. Along with people from a wide range of nationalities and ethnicities and who have a wide range of political opinions. This means that there will always be some audiences for extreme statements. On the other hand, I don't believe the majority of people adjusted to it. In my opinion, the ridiculousness of characters like Seinfeld's Soup Nazi is what makes them entertaining. Furthermore, every person who views that episode. You should be aware that there is a situation in which it wouldn't be appropriate, since you can see that it is. As a child learning about our democratic system, I recall hearing over and over again that the United States government is structured with checks and balances. This means you can't just decide to take it over at any time. What we have found, though, is that our safeguarding institutions are really weak, in my opinion. Democracy, according to history, is inherently precarious. This means we need to keep an eye out for political movements that want to derail our efforts. Institutions of democracy. To elect the most qualified individuals to positions of authority is not the point of democratic institutions. The real challenge lies in preserving democracy in the presence of despicable leaders. While we wait, feel free to leave a comment with your opinions. Please hit the like button until we meet again if you found this video helpful. The Supreme Court is progressively taking extraordinary measures to remove ex-President Donald Trump's eligibility to run for president again in 2024. I will give you the rundown in this little video before I begin. If you like what you see and would like to stay updated, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. Much obliged. The Supreme Court's unexpected legal decision is bad news for Trump. Trump, the previous U.S. president. As reported by Newsweek today, he finds himself entangled in a web of legal proceedings as he attempts to resolve various court matters, the outcomes of which may determine his political fate. In the Washington, D.C. election meddling case, the Supreme Court has given Trump until the end of the day to respond to prosecutor Jack Smith's motion, highlighting the critical nature of the situation. As a result of this unforeseen legal development, the court has accelerated the procedure and expressed readiness to hear the entire case. Prosecutors in this case claim that Trump was involved in efforts to reverse the 2020 election results, which sparked the violent events that unfolded on January 6, 2021, in the United States Capitol. Based on the 14th Amendment, the Supreme Court will rule that Trump cannot run for president in 2024. Meanwhile, the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., has filed a case challenging Trump's presidential immunity. A frenzy of legal activity characterizes the holiday season, with certain days expected to see briefs from Trump and Jack Smith, judge. The Supreme Court has not yet declared jurisdiction, so the date of January 9 has been set for the oral arguments. What happens next in Trump's legal battles may depend critically on the results of these trials. Upstate New York. On the initiative of Attorney General Letitia James, Trump is now facing a fraud trial in New York. Even though he has already taken a setback in the case, some of his companies have lost their legal trading rights. Trump still has until January 5 to draw his final conclusions. Judge Arthur Engoron will make important decisions on the trial's trajectory, including the potential imposition of heavy fines for his failed trial, during oral arguments on January 11. The fate of this statewide judicial drama rests in the hands of Judge Arthur Engoron. A jury-awarded retired journalist E. Jean Carroll received $5 million in damages in a slander action, adding to Trump's legal difficulties. Trump sexually abused Carroll in the mid-1990s, and the jury found him guilty of defamation of character. Trump, unfazed by the earlier ruling, will resume his defamation trial on January 16. The former president may face additional monetary and public relations ramifications depending on the verdict of this trial. Over the course of these court fights, Trump has pleaded not guilty multiple times and cast the proceedings as part of a larger political witch hunt, all while insisting that he is innocent. He was one of the frontrunners for the Republican presidential nomination, and his involvement in that campaign gave rise to his legal issues. There are intricate and high-stakes implications for Trump's status in both the political and legal realms, as these legal challenges connect with his political ambitions. Both the general public and political analysts will be keeping a careful eye on the judicial processes as they progress, since they will shape the storyline surrounding Trump's legacy when he leaves office. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear John Six's case, which may have implications for Trump's prosecution. In a case that may significantly affect the criminal prosecution of former President Trump, the Supreme Court accepted on Wednesday to consider an appeal from a man accused of offenses connected to the assault on the U.S. Capitol on June 20 and 21. Defendant Joseph Fisher has petitioned the court to remove a charge accusing him of impeding an official proceeding, specifically, the certification by Congress of President Joe Biden's election victory, which a throng of Trump supporters interfered with. The justices will hear the case. Edward Lang and Garrett Miller, two additional suspects charged with John Bursick, also filed comparable appeals. The decision in Fisher's case will determine the fate of these cases. The federal public defender who is representing Fisher, Fritz Ulrich, expressed his pleasure that the court would define the relevant statute, but he remained silent on the matter. The federal election meddling case against Trump includes this and other charges. As a result, the court's decision to consider the matter and the timing of its final decision could impact his case. The justices will have to deliberate for a long time before issuing a decision. The present 9-month term of the court finishes in June. I really appreciate you sticking around until the very end. In the space provided, please share your thoughts on this news story, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Until our next news, take care. May America be blessed from above. Bye.